The Undiscovered Self. I read this book 4 years ago, just after I finished a 20-year career in the semiconductor industry, and just after I moved my family to Mexico to start from scratch. And I read the book with a certain expectation. I thought I would recognize myself in the book as the man who actually went beyond it, the one who found the path to the undiscovered self. Instead, I still recognized myself as the man that was described in the book. Jung wrote The Undiscovered Self in 1957. At that time, he was 82. And he had about a year of work left, and it was 4 years before he actually died. The book was very different than everything else he wrote. It was not about dreams or archetypes or psychoanalysis. It was a warning about a specific kind of person. A person who functions well, holds clear opinions, and cannot tell you where a single one of them came from. For me, the book was eye-opening, because I didn't lose myself in a moment of weakness. I lost myself in 20 years of reasonable decisions. In this video, we talk about this book, about what it says, where it is right, and also where it stops being useful, but also how to get beyond the theoretical knowledge and get into practical doing. So what is this book actually about? In 1957, with 82 years, Jung wrote actually already everything that was needed for his scientific career. He was already one of the most famous psychologists of his time. And he investigated everything that is relevant to discovering ourselves. The archetypes, the symbols, the typology, the alchemy, the dreams. And then suddenly he's publishing this book, which is very different. And you clearly can see in the book that it's written by a man who has nothing to lose. But you feel also that the topic is deeply important to him. You feel a certain kind of urgency. He said the greatest danger for man is not anymore war or disease. It is actually to become a statistical average. And that's interesting because he wrote it after going through 2 world wars in Europe and living now in the danger of a nuclear Armageddon due to the Cold War. The topic of his life was individuation, to become who you truly are. And suddenly he's afraid that we're going in the opposite direction, that we're actually becoming a number in a big mass of something. What Jung was saying in this book is that the government, the state, the bureaucracy, but also science and other mass organizations, to describe human individuals, they degrade them to an average. And from their point of view, that's also helpful, because they need something to work with. So in this scenario, this is done to you from above. What Jung couldn't foresee is that today it's even worse. Today, we carry the statistics with ourselves, in our cell phones, in our media accounts. And we're using the exactly same method to compare us, not with individual others, but with an average. I catch myself frequently doing this in my own work. When I record a video or finish an essay, before I've even decided if I still stand behind it, I'm already looking on the performance, on the views and on the likes. Because that's how it works today, right? Within minutes we know already how many people agree and disagree with you. You know immediately how you rank and if you're above or below others. And from there, you adjust. Not for a certain reason, just because the information is simply there. We are optimizing for an average person. The problem with that is, this average person does not exist. But still, millions of us are quietly trying to become him. I've noticed this especially during my corporate years. For more than 20 years, I believe that titles make a person important. Well, I've never decided on this opinion. I cannot even say where it came from or since when I have it. It was simply obvious to me that that's the way it is. And that was my career. Engineer, project manager, product manager, director. Each step felt like growth. And I had good reasons for each of them. I got more responsibility, more money, more scope. Nobody ever asked me whether I wanted the next title. They just asked whether I was ready for that. And so did I. But over the years I felt that the misalignment was getting bigger. And so I left. And I thought leaving this career, leaving this life would make things different. But still, 6 or 12 months later, I found myself falling back into the same pattern. I was still using the same metric, and I was still measuring a week by whether it had moved something visible forward. My job was gone, but the way of thinking wasn't. A pattern that you build over more than 20 years, you cannot just put aside. Reading Jung's book left me actually with a very good diagnosis of my problem. And in my opinion, the undiscovered self is actually one of the most precise descriptions of how we live today. Where the book didn't help me is how to move forward from there. I mean, Jung offers a way out of that. His solution is you need to reconnect with your inner authority and not so much with the collective. And yes, I understand the idea, and I can also explain it. But at this time, that was a very abstract concept for me. I mean, how do you connect to your inner authority? How does that work? And that's the difference between insight and integration. I spent more than 10 years reading and studying about psychology and philosophy and personal development without being able to integrate it. And I think today it's even more difficult because we are constantly distracted. By accident, I found a really good way how to connect with my inner self. That's something that works for me personally. And this is by extended periods of fasting. In the beginning, I did it for the health benefits and to see what my body was capable of. But over time, this practice developed into a philosophical shadow work journey. The big advantage of such a fast is that if you remove all the distraction, which is in this case food, but I try to avoid also other things like social media consumption, you create a kind of emptiness. But this emptiness is not something bad, it's something that is necessary for the process of inner work to get started. You need to create space, you need to create silence, and you need to release energy for the inner dialogue to happen. These things are something we usually don't find easily today. We think by reading another book or consuming more information, we will come closer to the solution of our problems. But that's actually the wrong direction. If you remove distraction, certain motives simply disappear. Ambition, comparison, or the need to explain myself. If you don't feed them, they just stay away. That doesn't mean that what remains is automatically the true self. That would be too easy. The point is that the things that disappear, they were never truly yours. And that's the starting point. I understood this very clearly when I noticed that the internal changes don't necessarily follow external changes. I mean, I left my job, I changed location, I changed the rhythm, I changed my work. And from the outside, that looks like a clear break. But inside, my pattern remained unchanged. And I figured out that leaving is actually also as a collective behavior the same as staying. It's just following a different script that somebody else wrote. The actual change is almost invisible. It is the capacity to wait, to leave a question open without immediately answering it. Not to ask Google or ChatGPT what to do next. That's individuation. And that's not something dramatic. It's something that happens slowly and quietly. And if you also understood individuation intellectually but don't know how to move forward, I want to leave you with one thing. It's a small exercise and it takes about 10 minutes. Take a certain belief that matters to you. Could be about work or about partnership or about life in general. And ask yourself 3 questions about this belief. When did I first think this? Who did I get it from? And finally, what would it have cost me at the time to hold the opposite view? The interesting thing is that with most of our important opinions, we cannot answer these 3 questions. Actually, the questions were always there, but we never asked them, or we never wanted to ask them. That part is the information. You don't have to do this exercise because you need to change your opinion. Actually, it can be also a chance to confirm them. But you have to know whether they are yours. So I hope some of that resonated with you. And to finish, let me say this clearly. You do not become more individual by disagreeing with everyone, but you become one the first time you honestly check where an opinion came from. And with this, I wish you a wonderful day. See you next week.